dancing fearless.
Practice of pure thinking. At first, the reader is led into abstract regions where thought must draw sharp outlines to reach clearly defined positions. He's talking about the book. When you read the book, he's talking about part 1 and part 2 of the book. But the reader is also led from arid concepts into concrete life. I'm fully convinced that to experience life in all its aspects, one must soar into the realm of concepts. Whoever is limited to the pleasures of the senses misses the sweetest joys of life. The oriental sage requires his disciples to live a life of resignation and asceticism for years before he shares with them his knowledge. The West no longer demands pious exercises and ascetic practices to attain knowledge. It does require, however, a sincere willingness to prepare for science by withdrawing oneself a while from the immediate impressions of life and entering the realm of pure thought. So this is not a path of vague mysticism. It's a science path of clearly defined positions. So the first part of the book is the hard part of because we're going into abstract regions to reach clearly defined positions, but then the reader is led from these arid concepts into concrete life. So in part 2 of the book, you get into ethics. We have conceptual ideals, and now we express them in life. The arid concepts turn into concrete life. We're out of the truth, out of the free thinking, independent thinking, a grasp of reality, principles. From that, we want to express that in life through ethical action. A lot of current cultural trends are based on sensual desires, whether it's sex, great food, getting intoxicated, beautiful cars, beautiful houses. It's all sensual pleasures. But then he says, the sweetest joys of life are soaring into the realm of concepts is the sweetest pleasure. Some of the philosophers back then, they never got out of bed. They would lay in bed all day, writing stuff and thinking. They wouldn't even get out of bed. Of course, that's where he mentions the concepts lead into concrete life. So we don't want to just sit in bed all day, soaring in the realm of concepts.
Now that you mention it, I think I did have that experience maybe a week or so ago, and I was reading, I think I was on chapter 3 or chapter 4, I can't remember. It started to light up in me in a way that it hadn't before. And I began to have a sensation of joyfulness, and then I wanted to go back and relive the experience. It's these little moments that start to happen as I'm reading through the text. I did have that moment, specifically related to the reading of the text. I do recall I read 2 or 3 sentences, and it was just like it lit up off the page. It was very interesting.
I mean, I could think of, say, if you're working on something and then you get a big insight and think, wow, this is the answer. And then after that process of getting the insight, there's another phase of making all the connections now with this new insight, integrating it into all your knowledge, where all of a sudden everything kind of shifts a little bit. That connects with this and that connects with this. And now this whole thing is making sense. There's a process of it reverberating through your knowledge, making new connections and explaining many other things beyond the initial insight. And that's a very exciting experience. But that's something you can ask yourself. Have you experienced thinking in such a way that it's a sweeter joy than any sensual pleasure that you have experienced? Now, when it comes to the sage or the occult master, the guru, the teacher, He's giving you outer knowledge, which is different than inner knowledge you receive by entering the realm of pure thought. That's why the sage, he's demanding pious exercises and ascetic practices so that you will develop selflessness and obedience to him, so then he can give you his knowledge and fill you up. So he wants you to become selfless. A selfless, in a sense, lose your individuality and become that kind of selfless person that you'll immediately obey. Inner truth and pure thinking also requires selflessness, but it's a different kind. It's a selflessness within the realm of pure thinking. It's selfless thinking. It's not a selflessness to an outer truth. It's more of a selflessness to an inner truth.
You're cutting out the middleman, going directly to the source.
Yeah, exactly. We all become our own gurus, which is wonderful. Well, I just had this on pure thinking, some things that Steiner said about it. It has only to be tried, and people will soon learn to be able to make it a reality. So he's saying it's no big deal. The most common reference to pure thinking is mathematical thinking. Pure thinking has a content, and that content is pure concepts and ideas. An example of that is the pure concepts and ideas in mathematics that have no perceptible content. Universal concepts. Triangle is a universal concept. The general concept triangle refers to all triangles, not to any specific perceptual content, but to all triangles. So that makes it a universal concept. In mathematics and philosophy, you think in universal concepts. And when you do that, you enter the realm of pure thinking. It has only to be tried, and people will soon learn to be able to make it a reality. The intention in my philosophy of freedom is that the reader must lay hold with his own thinking activity, page by page, that the book itself is only a sort of musical score, and that one must read this score through inner thinking activity in order to progress continually out of his own resources from thought to thought. The Philosophy of Freedom is a book of pure concepts. By engaging into the reading of the Philosophy of Freedom, you enter the realm of pure thought. And more than that, he's talking about recreating the book out of yourself. Of course, that's necessary to make it your own. Now, there's various study techniques you can use. Something that I've always liked is what's called a work-study project. Part of your study is that you have a project going where you have to express what you've learned. In order to be able to express what you learn, you have to make the text your own. Creating a piece of art. Go through the book and rewrite it in your own words. That's a great one. There's another advanced way to look at this also. There's a couple levels of working with the book. One is that you're just learning the individual concepts that are in the book. Go through piece by piece and learn like what we're doing now. And then there's an advanced level. Once you achieve that and you've gone through the book and grasped the concepts and you have a basic reading comprehension of what's in the book, you can start interrelating the thoughts. All these thoughts interrelate to each other. Having each concept be part of a musical score, you can then start creating music from, throughout the book. In a good conversation about the book, you pull out something from chapter 10, then you're back in chapter 6, then you go to chapter 7. You're pressing the book, creating a new composition out of the concepts in the book.